Ah, hey, why isn't that working? The YouTuber program, why are you not talking? Ah. How about now? Nope. Well, that's the camera. Hello? No? Alright, now we're talking. How about now? Ah, there we go. I hate when my webcam thing gets all goofy. Alright. So, let's put on some, somewhat chill music. Let's see here. Yeah, I guess this will work. All right. Anyways, so it's been, according to my notifications from my Twitch activity feed, about 21 days since the last I streamed. Oh, man. I had some pretty high hopes. Unfortunately, it turned into yet another break. This one isn't all me. It is me, but it's also not me. So I had some plans for upgrading the stream. I've been working on potentially a new model, but things kind of fell through, and so plans got scrubbed. I got busy with work, and honestly just didn't have the motivation to stream. I don't really want to stream when I don't feel like it and I'm tired and stuff, because honestly, it's not a good experience for you guys. And it's definitely not fun for me to do. And I was tired to the point where when I was coming home from work, I was just falling asleep shortly after and getting up and basically being like, well, I may as well just go back to bed. So yeah, here we are. Yeah. Crazy to think that we're at this point with the Switch 2 launch coming, and we got Summer Game Fest around the corner. There's just a lot of activity all of a sudden. I like this time of year when it comes to games. Holidays are fun, and the post-holiday speculation of the future is always fun too, but this is the time of year that, old little stream crush, has grown up with this nostalgia of the summertime, the summer events always being like the thing. For me, it was E3, and unfortunately E3 is kind of done and over. And frankly, the whole era of E3, all the things about E3, they're just kind of done. Personally, I think that the last real big hurrah for E3 from me was Rev 3 Games, when Adam Sessler was helping, and you had Max Scoville and the girl, I apologize, I can't remember her name, and she, they were all just like working their asses off, doing the best they could to kind of get things going. There's a lot of stuff to cover when it comes to E3. I remember the rumors, that Adam Sessler was like on drugs and shit. Like, no, you just get that kind of wild craziness when you're overworked. It's a hot floor. People are sweating. Deodorant hadn't been invented yet. As a journalist, you're just racing from place to place to catch all the news you can. It's funny how we've gotten so used to the instant gratification of, this is kind of distracting me with the music. There we go. So some a little more lo-fi and chill. But yeah, really, it's just a different time now. Every company's got their own version of a direct. The information for a lot of these things is often leaked or put out there before the events even happen. There's a lot of controlled messaging. It's just not the same vibe anymore of E3 or just E3 era or CES or just any show in general. A lot of industries probably suffer from this, I think. This, like, the air of mystery of the future is gone. Like the only way it really exists right now is when people speculate about the far future, or like when they're scared of the future. So like that's kind of like an AI right now. Like AI is a fascinating technology. I don't, at least generative AI. I hate calling it AI because it's not really true AI, but generative AI has a lot of potential as a tool. The dystopian part about it, obviously, is what corporations plan, other entities plan to do with that technology. But that's true of every technology, to be honest. So the benefits of it, could be great, but also it could be the most horrible, damaging technology we've ever invented. The jury is still out on that. But that's kind of that mystery of technology, right? Like, we know technology will improve, things will get better. They generally tend to. Question is for who and for what, and what damages have to be done to get to that point where things are better. And that's rough, but but when it comes to like hobby stuff, the future of gaming or the future of cars or something like that, that's a bit different. The crystal ball is not as fun to read, I think, as it used to be. Like, we spent years speculating on the Switch 2. And in reality, like, I'm not really sure why. Like, sure, it was always fun to kind of see somebody talk about something, like, because we thought there was going to be the Switch Pro, and we thought, just there was all these different rumors about what the next version of the Switch would be, or the next Nintendo console would be. Ironically, the company that seems to pride itself on being very blue ocean strategy chose not to do that, and instead just made the Switch, but with better specs. And I'm excited for the Switch too, but not because of what it is. Like, I mean, it's better specs. It's a PS4 to a PS5 type of thing. At the end of the day, I'm not really sure, like, what value it's going to have outside of just better graphics. It's got the mouse feature, and like some of the tech on it's cool. Like the magnetic rails for the Joy-Cons is nice. That's probably going to be a big upgrade compared to the original metal rails. And obviously it's a PS4 on the palm of your hand, which is pretty dang cool. But like, I don't know. I feel like this is the first era without Iwata, and it's bringing back, like, the success of the Switch has brought back, I think, what people like to call arrogant Nintendo. It's when people say arrogant Nintendo, arrogant Sony, or something like that, what they're referring to is companies that get kind of full of themselves. They feel like, oh, we've been successful, and now we can use this leverage of success in order to further monetize the customer. To treat the customer like crap for a little bit to maximize profit. Nintendo has made a boatload of cash from the Switch, like incredibly profitable. If you think about the fact that most Switch games never, at least Nintendo Switch games, the ones that Nintendo made or published or whatever, pretty much never drop below the $60 price, except for some sales. If you wanted to get those games cheaper, you had to look at like third-party options, the used market, which with digital now is going away. And then you look at something like Mario Kart 8, which has sold like 40 million copies. 40 million copies at $60 a piece is a ginormous amount of money. And to be fair, there's been some Nintendo published Switch games that did not do that well comparatively to that. Still sold a few million, and even that at $60 is pretty darn good. And then you figure the Nintendo Online sales. Like, Nintendo Online is obviously not Xbox Live or PSN, but like, it's still millions and millions of subscribers, tens of millions of subscribers, at a minimum. So that's a lot of revenue. But then you get other stuff too, like the Nintendo Switch Online controllers, which are like $50-$60. Accessories for Switch game, like you want more Joy-Cons, that's $80. You want a Switch Pro controller, that's like $70. Everything Switch is pricey. And with Switch 2, it's getting pricier. And that's concerning to me. You know, and I think a lot of people are concerned about that. Now, obviously, there's the real life market conditions of tariffs and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, unfortunately, Nintendo doesn't necessarily have the most control over that kind of stuff. And most companies, they kind of don't. But I feel like there are things you can control by exerting pressure. Like, people always say, like, the reason why prices get high at the end is because of all the costs that get passed from company to company to company, and then eventually to you, the consumer. So if a tariff goes up and say, like, you know, let's say the United States slaps tariffs on China, products that are produced in China, you know, all the costs of all the little things that go into the final product, the screws, the plastics, you know, all that kind of stuff, every little bit ripples down the chain and up the chain to create the prices that we have. The problem with that, though, is that, like, companies do have the ability to exert pressure on their partners. Instead, they're, you know, I don't know realistically how many of them are actually doing that versus just pushing the costs down to the consumer on the next level, you know? So, and looking at some of the price changes going on at retailers, my guess is most companies are probably choosing to just raise their prices and then not give a shit. I feel like there's a certain fear right now, you know, or lack of fear, I should say, in raising prices. This idea that, like, the consumer will just eat it because they've eaten it before. There are tolerances to what consumers do. You know, and, like, at a certain point, you kind of have to look at, like, how much is a consumer spending? You know, and the market indicators are there that consumers aren't necessarily the most excited about spending lots of money on things, and they're pushing more and more stuff off to credit. And as a whole, the world economy right now, there are lots of indicators of both businesses, government, and normal consumers that there is something deeply wrong in this economy. And I think everybody right now on the higher end of things, the shareholders and all that, like, they're just trying to extract the wealth they can while they can. And damn the consequences of the future. What worries me about that in relation to, like, say, the Switch is, like, Nintendo has always had a long history of trying to extract as much profit as they can. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. Like, from a business perspective, your goal is to make profit, right? But, like, they also have had for a very long time now an image of being like, I won't say family per se, but a value conscious company. They kind of have always been like, hey, we know that we have a lot of customers who aren't going to be able to buy things when they're the newest on the market. But down the road, we want to appeal to those consumers with price drops and bundle deals and other gimmicks like that. And, you know, that's not what you're seeing anymore. Did you know Gaming did a really good video about some of the changes Nintendo's made, where it's like, you know, the getting rid of the voucher program before the Switch 2 launches, you know, and things like that. Just these little tactics here and there designed to kind of squeeze money where they can and become profitable beyond what they've ever been. And if you're a shareholder in Nintendo right now, you're probably pretty happy with your returns. And there's nothing to say that, like, the Switch 2 will actually be a long-term success. Like, obviously out the gate, it's probably going to do pretty well, but, like, otherwise, I don't really know. And I think that's kind of one of those future speculation things. Sales may fall off the cliff like the 3DS. You never know. Nintendo will always have that ability to, like, in case of emergency, push button, like they did with the Wii U. But I do think that, like the PS4 Pro, if you're going to start charging higher amounts for products, you need to kind of sweeten the deal a little bit. You know, Mario Kart being a pack-in for $50 more, probably not a bad thing. But I feel like there could have been something else. Like, they have that Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour. It's like $10. They should have just packed that in. Like, there should be like a Wii Sports or a Mario All-Stars, you know, or, you know, that kind of a thing. There should be those kind of pack-ins that kind of make the console feel a little bit more like an experience that You're not just pulling out a box and then doing some updates and then, oh, here it plays your games that you've always been playing. Like, there needs to be something where you're like, oh, this is a Switch 2. You know, oh, this is a PS5 Pro. And really right now, that's just not a thing. Like, companies just don't seem to believe in the value of giving you something premium anymore for a reasonable price. Like, they believe that premium is something that you got to cough up for. You know, you want the red carpet experience? Pay up, motherfucker. And that's a shame. That's a big shame because, like, it shouldn't be like that. I don't think anyway. I don't think a lot of people think that. You know, and just like in the Did You Know Gaming video, people talk about like how, oh, old consoles adjusted for inflation were expensive, blah, blah, blah. Different market conditions for one thing. Inflation is not a one-to-one. It will never be a one-to-one thing. You can't compare inflation today to something from 2 decades ago. It's just everything is different then. You know, inflation, you can use it as a talking point. It is not a definitive, like, here is this, there is that, these are why they're, you know, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But even if it did, you know, all of those consoles that came out during the 90s, I can tell you right now, because I lived through it, those consoles came out at $200-$300, and within a few months to a few years, they were all dirt cheap to afford. Not like the cheapest thing ever, but like, as an example, you could buy an NES for $100 or less. You could buy a Super Nintendo for $100 or less. It didn't come with extra controllers or even extra games all the time, but it did, you know, you could buy them. You could buy them cheap. There was a core set. There was, you know, the action set, which was usually an extra controller in a game. You know, there was various bundles of different game types. You wanted the Killer Instinct bundle, the Donkey Kong bundle. You know, the idea that you could send away to Nintendo, you could buy your Super Nintendo with Mario World and 2 controllers. You could send your proof of purchase in, and then they would send you a copy of Mario All-Stars for free, which is 4 games remastered for the Super Nintendo of Mario 1, 2, The Lost Levels, and 3 for nothing. You just, because you bought a Super Nintendo, they're like, here's 4 remastered Mario games. And then you have Switch era, where it's like, you know, we're celebrating Mario, right? Here's Mario's anniversary. We're going to bring out a new bundle of Mario games. It's going to be, you know, Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy, and Mario 64. Mario 3D All-Stars Collection. But you're only going to be able to buy it for a limited time, and then that's it. We're going to stop selling it. Like, what? It just, huh? Like, the difference is so, like, what the heck? You know, imagine being able to send away to Nintendo today for a Mario 3D All-Stars collection, and it's Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy 1 and 2, and all of them are basically 1080p upreses with, like, maybe some enhanced art and stuff like that, you know, and then a collection of, like, maybe some behind the scenes pictures and stuff like that, right? Like, and all you had to do was buy a Nintendo Switch or, you know, like, fulfill some other market condition. Boom, you get it for basically nothing. Like, that would be amazing, right? But that doesn't exist anymore. That type of Nintendo, that type of market, that type of world, it's not a thing anymore. It's just a shame. It just really is a shame. So I don't know. The markets are just weird. But, like, the way companies treat consumers now, it's frustrating. And I'm just worried that, you know, like, going into the future, it's only going to get worse. You know, when the PS6 is around the corner, are we going to be at the point where they're charging, you know, $600 for a PS6 and it's the most bare bones experience ever? Like, I'm kind of shocked that there isn't even any theming. Like, there's no eShop music or anything on the Switch. And some people will be like, that's a good thing because I want it to be the most minor, you know, like, I want it to be the most minimalist operating system ever. But hey, Soaring Tales, 800, right? I mean, I was trying to be nice, but I mean, at the current rate things are going, yeah, it might be $800. It's just wild, right? Like, I just don't understand, like, how we got to this point where companies just feel like they can just charge absurd amounts and get away with it. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. I wish things were better. I really do. But man, I just yeah, I just been kind of going on and on about this, but it just bothers me a lot. Going into Summer Game Fest, I'm going to see all these great games, and I'm just going to be like, yeah, I should play the prediction game of like which games are most likely to never actually see the light of day, or which games are going to cost $1 billion in budget and then fail because they didn't make that back. Just it's weird that I've gotten so cynical about gaming these days. Like, I remember being a lot more excited about things. Going back to what I was saying about E3, it just feels like nowadays it's just, I don't know. I don't get as excited. Like, Summer Game Fest doesn't excite me the way E3 ever did. Trying to price the PS6 at the PS3's launch price isn't Sony at all. Not wrong. Not wrong. I mean, and the wild thing is, while the Switch is definitely a more serious competitor now that Microsoft seems to be dropping out of the console market, I feel like they're not enough of a competitor on the same level as a PlayStation, like as the PlayStation to counter arrogant Sony. I feel like Sony's going to be like, haha, we're the only high-end player in the game now. We can do whatever we want. And you're going to get that like PS3 arrogance that they tried in the first place and failed at because people are like, what the fuck? I'm not working 2 jobs for a PlayStation. Yeah. I don't know. It's just wild to me that we're even in that situation. Like I don't want to be at a point where Sony and Nintendo are both trying to compete to be like, who can extract the most cash from their customer. When there's no value left in gaming, I mean, like, it's no wonder that so many people turn to things like Fortnite, because it's like, it's free. You just pop in and play. Like, sure, if you really want the extra, stuff from the microtransactions or whatever, but like, the market is dominated by free to play games because it's free, Like, and then you wonder why the console market's not growing. And it's like, well, don't offer me free stuff per se, but like, there's no value. Everything's so expensive. Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. Okay, so two different responses to your comments here. The Microsoft is still in the gaming market. I absolutely believe that 100%. But as far as like being a console manufacturer in the way that we used to think, I think that's gone. I think Microsoft is abandoning that idea of a, like pre-built type cut, like it's going to be a lot more like the Xbox, maybe the OG Xbox. But more likely, I think what you're going to see is that they're going back to like Windows gaming. Like they're going to be focusing more on the software side of their, which is honestly their strong suit, and they're backing off of their hardware side, and they're going to leave other vendors to deal with that kind of stuff. So think like Steam Deck, or like 3DO, where other companies are going to make the hardware, and then you're just going to run the Xbox software on it. I think that's probably where they're going with this, but we'll see. Like, they've said that they're going to be making another console, but like they haven't been talking much about their future plans with that kind of stuff since last year. So I don't know. I'm kind of hesitant to like make a serious prediction, but I remember last year when they first announced some of their third party stuff. I remember last year tweeting about like, oh, they're probably going to go the path of the 3DO. I think there's still some truth to that. There was some images that leaked of, I think it was the ROG Ally, like the handheld, the Asus handheld, that there was an Xbox version because it had the Xbox button. But like, I don't know. The last rumor I heard was that Microsoft's backing off of that, and now they're focusing more on like getting an Xbox ecosystem running on Windows or something. So who knows at this point? Basically becoming a more expanded version of Sega and what Sega wanted to do. Maybe. I mean, like, I, see, the problem I have with that is that Sega at its peak was very much a technology company that made excellent software to push that technology. So like they were partnering with like the Department of Defense and Lockheed Martin. They had, they had conflicts. Like one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that before the company that helped design the N64 came to market, they actually went to Sega first, and Sega, in their incredible stupidity at that time, turned them down. Sega also had the ability to put their name on the PlayStation, believe it or not, but that didn't happen either. But Sega, I think honestly, Sega's still, if Sega was going to enter the market today, I think they'd still be making their own custom hardware and custom consoles. I don't think they would have gone down the Microsoft route of just slapping something on a Windows PC, the way consoles have kind of become. I think that they, of all companies, would have stuck with custom hardware because it would have done the things that they wanted it to do. Like even the Dreamcast, even though it's very much a Windows type device, the Windows side of it really didn't get used all that much. And the hardware that was inside of it was incredibly well made. I mean, honestly, even the Saturn, for as much of a mess as it was a very well built console, almost to a fault, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like with Microsoft, I think they were perfectly happy trying to, like basically use a PC and then just beef it up in the ways that would work for a console, and then just kind of go from there. I don't feel like they were ever really interested in building custom machinery and then using the unique things from that to create a vision around it. So I think like, if you look at like Nintendo, Nintendo historically has always tried to do something different with their hardware. I feel like the Switch to the Switch 2 is probably the least jump they've made with that. But like every version of Nintendo hardware has always tried to be like some unique hardware thing that tries to be different, tries to stand out. Sony kind of, I mean, they're more iterative than like jumping and stuff, but like they've always had some gimmick that they want to push with their hardware. I don't feel like Xbox ever did. Kinect, kinda, but Kinect was really just a rip on like the Wii motion controls. So I don't know. But I feel like if Sega was in the market, Sega would absolutely be pushing technology in interesting ways. I mean, they were one of the first console makers to jump on the networking bandwagon. The Saturn and the Dreamcast both had online gameplay. Sega was one of the first companies to jump in with analog controls. Their arcade stuff is obviously legendary. I don't know. It's... Yeah, I feel like Microsoft is probably perfectly happy just becoming a third-party developer at this point. I feel like they don't see any value in consoles anymore. Which, I mean, looking at the current state of the hardware industry is probably not wrong. But I feel like they've kind of been part of the problem with that too. Like the original Xbox had at the time a pretty interesting vision behind it of using PC components to kind of deliver a console experience. But I feel like with the Xbox 360, I don't know. The Xbox 360 is basically just the same idea, just turned to 11. It's also their most successful console, though, so who can argue about that? Ooh, you got a big comment. The most unfortunate thing I've seen is the way Nintendo is going out and the fact that they're getting away with so many things. Gaming is a little bit messy in place in modern times. Take a look at how music and games is getting screwed. It's very collective, the people who manage copyright for Toby Fox's songs for Tale. These are get twisted. That game music could be something that can't be played on live streams and videos. Yeah. And what really sucks about that is like, that's probably something that I think would have happened faster without Twitch. because the value that a lot of companies see in streaming games, they've been more hesitant to exert their influence of copyright control. Some companies have, but most companies have kind of backed off of DMCA for video game streaming because of the fact that they see marketing value in it. But yeah, I know some companies, like Atlas is one. Atlas had a really, and they still kind of do have a really weird thing about like streaming their games when they just come out. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing too, is like gamers themselves will jump on these things too. You know, like a lot of gamers are very like they're very single-minded centric. Like I don't like, not in a mentality way, but like there's a lot of people who will buy a PlayStation and then they only buy Call of Duty and then that's all they ever play. Right? They don't really buy any other games. So for people like that, the gaming industry could do whatever they want. They don't care, because who cares what they're doing with other games and microtransactions and all that kind of stuff. They have their Call of Duty machine and they're happy with it. You know, kind of the same thing for basically anything. Like this is the reason why forever games like Fortnite, you know, why they're so bad for the industry, because they are their own ecosystem. I mean, literally in the case of Fortnite and Roblox, like, you can play Guitar Hero or a version of it in like Fortnite now. What you can do with Roblox is wild. Like, I don't think people really realize what Roblox is doing right now. Like, like you can make a Call of Duty quality type game in Roblox now. Like, it doesn't look cheap. It's, when I saw that the other day, I was like, what the heck? Like, that's kind of wild to me. So like, people aren't going to leave Roblox if they're already in that ecosystem. They're not going to leave Fortnite when they're in the ecosystem. They're not going to leave Grand Theft Auto or FIFA or Madden or Call of Duty. Like, those types of gamers, those are the games they play, and they're just not really going to branch out. It's like the old days of like, I only play Nintendo games or I only play Sega games. You know, like that's the world we're in right now. You know, and those games, they suck so much time and money out of everybody that they don't really look around the rest of the industry and like see what's out there. Roblox's game engine could look even better than Unity. Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, I remember it was just the oof sound. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's funny because like my thinking of Roblox is from like a couple of years ago when it looked okay, but like I was not expecting it to look as good as like a modern, like what you think of like a double A or triple A game. And now it's like, it's like, what the fuck? I don't get it. I don't get it. The Lego Fortnite thing is like, I played that for a little bit last year, and that is like a whole ass game in the Fortnite thing. Like, you build, and it's a survival game, and you can play with your friends, and like it's a whole little thing. And it's just like, what is happening in games right now is basically anybody who wants to play a game, they have a game for them. You just can't think of gaming as you know, like you did in the 90s or even the 2000s, where it was like, here's a console and the world centers around that console. It's just not, it's not a thing anymore. I hate to say it. So, you know, you buy the console to play the games, and the games are what matters at the end of the day. But yeah, it's not fun when the platform holders of either the games or the consoles feel like they need to constantly squeeze you for money. You know, there's no value in things anymore. I want a Nintendo Selects. You know, I want PlayStation Greatest Hits. I want my value. You know, I want to see the sales that aren't just Black Friday. You know, I feel like as a consumer, I feel like, you know, the pot has not been sweetened. You know, but what do I know? I'm an old guy. But yeah, I mean, I think that what's funny here is like, I feel like gaming becoming more like spec centric is actually bad for consoles, because I feel like one of the best things about consoles from the past is that they were kind of built with like cheap ass off the wall parts. They weren't like, there was some custom designs to some of that stuff, yeah, but like they were like, hey, what can we get for cheap? Let's put that there. There are very, very few games that are really free. Take Destiny as the extreme example of how free-to-play can be done. Roblox and Fortnite are the other one. Yeah, free is never really free. I learned that hard lesson with Smite. I mean, look, these these companies are going to get their money no matter what. I mean, they do suck the air out of other live service games. That's why you see so many of Sony's attempts failing. But like, yeah, I mean, the free being the entry to the thing is not necessarily free at the end of the day. You are, if something is free, you're not the consumer, you're the product. But I still feel like if you're somebody who isn't going to be tempted to buy stuff all the time, I mean, it's a pretty good deal. I mean, you can get a lot of entertainment out of Fortnite and not spend any money at all. That is hard to compete with. When you're out there making your AAA, $500 million budget game that's going to have to come out for $80, and your competition is Fortnite, where anybody can jump in, it's free, and it keeps their attention all the time. Like, and it basically runs on a toaster. That is hard to compete with. I don't even know if you'd even want to try, to be honest. Yeah, true. I was one of those kids. Mom, I need you to buy me this. I'll do chores forever until eternity. Yeah, I'll do all of my homework, all of the homeworks ever. I'll be the best kid ever. Yeah. And as an adult, absolutely yes. I want to reward myself with cool things, especially things that I always wanted as a kid. I couldn't afford them. It's one of the reasons I still love video games, because they've always had that mystery to me, that mystique, I guess you'd say. Like when I was a kid, I really, really wanted a Game Gear. I thought the Sega Game Gear was like the coolest thing ever. And I wasn't able to get one until I was an adult. By that point, LCD screens had gotten a lot better. So I was a little disappointed, but, it's just kind of my pattern in life is a lot of the things I missed out on because I couldn't afford them as a kid. Absolutely. I think by the time I was through my 20s, I had either owned or played most of the things I really wanted to play as a kid, with the exception of probably, well, let's see here. I never played the CDI. I've always wanted to get one. I know most CDI stuff is kind of blah, but otherwise, I think while I have played Neo Geo games, I've actually never played anything with Neo Geo hardware. Like, the Neo Geo was like the ultimate console back in the day. And I would say that was probably like the one thing I always wanted to own, but just literally unaffordable. I'd even settle for a Neo Geo machine, arcade machine, but that's just me. But yeah, I've owned a 3DO, a Jaguar, the Sega CDX, the XI, God, if there was a variation of a Sega console, I probably owned it, or still do. But yeah, I don't know. Game Gear for me was one of those things I always really wanted, and yeah, it was nice to be able to afford it when I was older. Now I got like 2 of them, and I think they both need recaps. But yeah, I think I have like 3 Sega Saturns. Yeah, something like that. So I have a multiple of a lot of consoles at this point. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Gaming's always been like that. A lot of weird ups and downs. Like I remember we used to complain about how certain things were expensive back in the 90s too. The $1,000 3DO and the way too expensive Sega Saturn. I mean, the Sega Saturn was like, what, $400 when it launched? I mean, it was pretty pricey. You know, they had to cut that down real quick to even get some sales going, but that idea of the launch price being $400 was just absurd. You know, like, there's a reason why the Sega Genesis kept selling all the way through like 1998, I think it was. Like, the last officially published game for the Sega Genesis, I think, was like 1999 or something. Like, Sega Genesis lasted a long time. PCs and consoles using a lot of new tech. People and companies take advantage of this to make sure more and more sloppy games are optimized or probably play tested. There can always be post-launch patch nowadays. Kind of. So basically what's happened is that, like, hardware specs have gotten so good that the vision you're going for is easier to produce than ever. And the downside of that is that you don't have to lie. You don't have to trick your hardware and come up with creative ways around the problem. Like, the infamous Silent Hill fog is literally a technical issue. The PlayStation 1 cannot render an entire town. It can't. There's just no way you'd be able to do it with a good frame rate, or any frame rate realistically. So the solution is just get rid of the draw distance. And then how do you hide the draw distance problem where things just pop in? Well, cover it with fog. I mean, it's not real fog, but it does the job. It looks foggy, right? That's it. That's literally the solution. It's very simple, but without that technical limitation of the PlayStation when they were developing Silent Hill, it never would have happened. So then you look at fast forward today and you look at Silent Hill 2 Remake, right? And it runs like shit. And you're like, well, why? So you turn off the fog and the entire fucking town is being rendered. Why? You can't see it. When the fog is on, you cannot see like 5 feet ahead of you. Why are you rendering shit the player cannot see? The game should run on basically anything. It's built on fog. It's a culling issue, right? So much performance could be saved if you're not having to render shit you cannot see. So that's the difference between old hardware and new hardware, is that today you can make amazing looking games like Silent Hill 2 Remake, and they run like shit because developers are too busy trying to make a good looking game and not being forced to work around the limitations of the hardware, like they did when they back in the day with Silent Hill 1. You know, even Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 has amazing looking models and stuff in their cutscenes, but that's, if you ever notice, like, it's very limited on everything else in the cutscenes. The models look amazing. The backgrounds, not so much. And there's a lot of close-ups of the faces and things like that because they don't want you looking at everything else. Developers had to be smarter about what to do with the resources they had. Today, they don't have that limitation. That's why Call of Duty is a fucking hog of your hard drive. Like, there's literally a Twitter post I just saw earlier that Call of Duty on the PlayStation 4 is now so large in file size that the PlayStation 4 can't update the file anymore because it takes up too much hard drive space on a normal PlayStation 4. That is wild. Why? It's like almost 600 gigabytes now for Call of Duty. That's stupid. No game needs to be 600 gigabytes. Like, not now, 10 years from now maybe, but come on. What the hell? Yeah, I know. Sorry, just a little rant. But it just, that's really what it is. Like, we've just reached a point with hardware where you can make and do basically whatever you want, and all you got to do is just patch out the problems. Supposedly, half the games you get that launch with poor shit never get properly patched out. Like, some games are just going to be broken forever until somebody finally gets off their ass on the consumer side of things and fixes it with, modding and all that. So, yeah, it's just frustrating. You have an entire generation of games that's kind of fucked because of Unreal Engine 5. With all the shader stutter and frame rate pacing and all that kind of stuff. So it's annoying. And then you have things like NVIDIA, where they introduce PhysX, and then they're like, well, nobody uses PhysX anymore, so let's remove that from our hardware. And it's like, oh, okay, so you're going to break half the games that use PhysX. Well, that sucks. So yeah, it's just the companies don't really seem to. I don't know. They just don't seem to care. Right? Yeah. I mean, a lot of people complain about Doom: The Dark Ages, because it doesn't necessarily look more advanced than Doom Eternal, which, I mean, it does. Maybe not in motion, but it does. But Doom Eternal or Doom: The Dark Ages is a game that has a lot of stuff going on under the hood, and it has full ray tracing, and it runs like butter, and it runs on basically anything. Like, compared to a lot of games where you turn ray tracing on and the game just goes like, that's kind of impressive. It's funny to me that, like, some companies, they get it. Like Nintendo, I know we like to bitch about them, but like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the fact that those games exist is a miracle. Like, people don't understand how complex you have to make things work. Like, Tears of the Kingdom is a really good example. In Tears of the Kingdom, you have the Ultra Hand, right? The little glue handy thing. Well, I mean, that's a great question, actually. Yeah, Doom Eternal looks amazing. Yeah. People assume that new thing must be better than old thing. That's really all it is. Yeah. So, yeah, I just ignore people like that. If Doom: The Dark Ages looks great, why do I care what the other games look like? They look great too. I got done playing Doom 2016 a month ago. It looks amazing. It still holds up just as much as it ever did. It's almost 10 years old at this point. It looks fantastic. If anything, I think it looks just as good as any game put out today. Doom 2016, I will say it right now. Doom 2016 looks just as good today with any game that just came out as it did 10 years ago. Well, 9 years ago. So, yeah, Portal 2 looks great. A lot of old games look great. People get too hung up on frame rates and resolution and graphics and stuff like that. A lot of games look just as good back then as they do now. Obviously, polygon counts and, I'm not, you can argue semantics all you want. But Silent Hill 2 for the PlayStation 2 looks amazing. It's a great looking game. Does it look old? Sure. It's an old game. But it looks good. Just as good as Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X looks great. Nothing wrong with it. Case in point, whenever they decide to bring it to a new console, they just up-res the graphics and run the backgrounds through an AI upraiser, and they're done. Like, it looks great. Gameplay's fine. So it's just silly. Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 1. That game looks great. Nothing wrong with it. The bot's gone. I get a bunch of those every time I stream. It's annoying. That and people who are like, hey, do you have Discord? I'd like to tell you all about the art I'm going to sell you that I obviously didn't, generically make. No thanks. I'm going to be honest, when it comes to frame rates, most people think that frame rate numbers matter more than frame rate feel. Like, a really good example is Nintendo 64. Yes, those games run at like 15 frames a second. Honestly, though, most of the time you don't even realize it. I bet most people couldn't tell you what a game's frame rate actually is just by playing it. Stellar Blade's a good example of that. A lot of Stellar Blade runs at like 45, 50 frames per second on a base PS5 or a base PS5. Like, you don't even notice it. Like, you're gonna notice frame rate stutters more than you'll notice actual frame rates. And that's something that's why people are so sensitive about like the Unreal Engine shader stutters and things like that. So frame pacing is another one too. Like, if you play Bloodborne, Bloodborne's a great game, don't get me wrong, and it runs at 30 frames per second, unless you get the modded version, but like, that's got a lot of frame rate stutter. The frame pacing in Bloodborne is kind of shit, to be honest. It makes the game feel kind of sluggish. it's Bloodborne is one of those games that desperately needs a modernized version of itself. Like, even if it's just the same game, but like, high resolution and, better frame rates. Because like playing it is kind of ass. So, but I mean, I still like the game. I think it's a great game, but like playing it, yeah, it takes a bit to get used to. But yeah, high frame rates for competitive games. I mean, I could see it. I think the biggest thing with high frame rates, though, is that if you're a competitive player, what you're looking for ultimately is latency. You want to be able to have reaction speeds, from your brain to your hand to the mouse or keyboard controller, whatever, to what you see on the screen and then back again. You want that to be as fast as possible. So any kind of like a frame rate, like dip or anything, or any kind of like stutter, that's gonna suck. You don't want that at all. So let's see here. All right, let's pop on over here. We need this bad boy. Boom. Okay, you're way too big. Let's shrink you. Okay. Might need to fix that a little bit. Just too small? I think we can make that a little bigger. How about that? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think that's going to work. And that might be too big, actually. Shrink that back down a little bit. I can spell. All right. And maybe we could shrink that down just a little bit, actually. Just a wee bit. There we go. I got lucky when my first modern game experience has been The Last of Us on the PS3. First game is Pokemon Pearl. A hand-me-down PS1 worms a few of the games. And shipped 360 pirate games. Yeah, it's impressive to me how many people either had hand-me-down consoles or modded or like bird copy games and things like that. I talked to a kid who was born very late 90s. Like, I think his birthday is like 98 or 90, 99, something like that. And I was like, oh man, so like PlayStation must have been your first experience, And he's like, no, actually it was Nintendo. It's like, Nintendo? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I grew up with Nintendo and Super Nintendo and stuff because we were too poor. Couldn't afford all that. And I'm like, I guess it makes sense. I mean, my first game console was an Atari, and I was definitely born after Atari was out. So I could see that, yeah. Last of Us on the PS3, though, like, people complain about how, it, doesn't run as well or anything like that anymore, but, like, it is a miracle that it runs that well. Like, that definitely is a game that pushes the hardware of the PlayStation 3 to its limits. And it's funny because we don't use that kind of language anymore. When it comes to games, like game consoles, we don't, like, what's the game that pushes the Switch to its absolute limits? Don't know. There isn't really like a game like that. There's games where like you can tell they can't run any better. But I mean, I don't know if there's a game that like shows me the true potential of the Switch, at least graphically. Luigi's Mansion 3 maybe is probably where it comes close to. That game looks like a cartoon at some points. Obviously Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild, because their systems are just incredibly, like, I don't even know how they work on a tablet. That's just wild. But back in the earlier 2000s, consoles were just going past the overly expensive range and the price. Well, yeah, kinda, but like the PS2, the GameCube, and the original Xbox were all really affordable late in, like, by 2003, 2004, like, you can get a GameCube for like $70. You know, a PS1 was like, you can get the Slim for like $100. You know, like, gaming was pretty cheap. Even like the Wii, you know, Wii came out like what, like $250, but like, you know, after about a year or two, you can get it for less than that. The only thing that, like, with the Xbox 360 and the PS3 was like, instead of dropping their prices constantly, they just increased the hard drive size. That was annoying. But even they had like a lot of bundles, and the Black Friday deals were pretty solid. And even then, by the end, you had like, you know, the Xbox 360 had like the E model, which was like $100. So like prices did go down. But I feel like absolutely during that time, you did see a shift. And then definitely the shift towards like prices not dropping as quickly was like the PS4 and an Xbox Series generation. Absolutely. As a kid, I didn't get anything expensive new because back then it was known the expensive thing was going to break. Why you test the waters and hand me down? True. But now I feel like, you know, like technology is so everywhere that people don't feel weird about it anymore. I remember people used to be like, oh man, why would you give your kid an iPad? That's so expensive. And it's like, well, nowadays everybody's got a million of them. You know, who doesn't have like 8 tablets in their home at this point, or old phones or something? So, yeah. So what do you think is going to be at Summer Game Fest? I don't know. I'm gonna make my easy prediction here. I think that Summer Game Fest is going to have let's see here. Yeah, they do. It's weird. I didn't go to school back when they had like in the classroom itself. They had any computer stuff we had to go to the computer lab for. But like bringing a laptop into school and stuff, if you whipped out a laptop in school, you were balling. You had good money. You know, your family had some cash, but you know, that's just kind of how it was. Now my nieces, they had laptops and tablets and stuff, but I was not so fortunate. Think Silksong? You know what? I'm gonna tell you, like, there's been some activity recently. You know, the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct a couple months ago. There was a Silksong teaser. I just saw news today that the Steam database for Silksong has just gotten updated for the first time in like 18 months. I say where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm gonna do it. Silksong reveal. Bam. There you go. So I absolutely think this is going to be a thing. We're going to finally see a trailer for Silksong. So that one's a gimme. Yep. I think that's what that's going to be a big one. We're going to get a Silksong reveal. I don't know if it's going to be like launching the date of it, but I think that there will at least be a trailer. You know, and maybe a dev talking about why it's taking so damn long. But there's definitely going to be something about Silksong. I do believe in that. So, all right, what else could we do here? Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet that here, we'll even do it this way. Possibly switch to Uh, timed exclusive. That's what I think right there. Silksong reveal, possibly Switch 2 timed exclusive. Because that would make the most sense, I think, especially with that tease during the Switch 2 Direct. I think that it's going to be like a time Switch exclusive for like a 6 months to a year or something like that. Maybe not even that long. Let's see. Speaking of which, there's been a lot of smoke. I think we're going to get a reveal for a new Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 9 or another remake, but probably Resident Evil 9. Absolutely think this is going to be a thing. I think we're going to get a teaser for this. We're past Monster Hunter Wilds. That excitement's kind of died down. Do you think so? I don't know. I feel like with Switch 2, there's going to be a lot of cross between Switch 1 and Switch 2. So I guess we could probably just say possible Nintendo timed exclusive. So that would probably make more sense. Yeah. Possibly Nintendo timed exclusive. Let's see. Resident Evil 9, Evil or remake? What about Capcom stuff? I bet you we'll probably see another Onimusha trailer. For the new Onimusha. The two just came out, the remake or whatever, remaster. We could see remaster of 3 or new one. I don't know which, but hey, Abyssal, how's it going, man? How is it going? We're just talking video games again, as always. Doing some Summer Game Fest predictions. Another Warm Free tease. That's a good one, actually. They did, what was the one? Soulframe, I think it is. But I don't know. Warframe, like, they tend to do those reveals with their own little show. So I don't know. I'm not sure that'd be a Summer Game Fest thing. What do you think, Abyss? What do you think is going to be, what do you think we're going to see at Summer Game Fest? Like, what do you look at, like, what's the game that you think is going to be there or that you would like to see there? Is it Game Awards? I suppose, yeah. I don't know. Keely's always got something up his sleeve. Yeah, for sure, Silksong. I'm definitely excited for it. I really need to stream Hollow Knight. Ooh, Subnautica 2. That's a good one. You know what? I'm actually going to go with that. Subnautica 2 trailer. It's been a while since we've heard about that one. So I absolutely think that's going to be on there. That's a good one. Let's see. Wolverine gameplay? I don't know. I think that's going to be the state of play. Animal Crossing spinoff? I don't know about that. I think it's too soon for Animal Crossing stuff. But I don't know. I think the Wolverine gameplay stuff, that'll be like the Sony state of play. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Maybe. I don't know. I'm curious to see because there should be there's rumors that there's going to be a Nintendo Direct shortly after the Switch 2 launches. I'm really curious to see what their fall plans are going to be. Metroid Prime is one of them. But generally Nintendo has averaged one published game release a month since the Switch launch. So next month is Donkey Kong. I'm curious to see what like they'll do to keep that momentum going, and then what their big game for the fall is going to be. So A Half-Life 3 announcement. You know what? Yeah, let's do it. I can spell. Half-Life 3 announcement. It doesn't even have to be a full trailer, so we'll just say like a teaser. We'll do that. It could just be the logo with a 3. Honestly, people are just going to go apeshit for that. You know, like the meltdowns will just be amazing. What's another one here? Okay, I have to do this. This is going to be a pie in the sky thing. Bloodborne anything. Just because, you know, we got to get that one off there. Let's see here. I don't know if Nintendo would want to overshadow Donkey Kong. Possibly a Mario or Zelda release, though. I could see like a Zelda. Did you say Night Rain for Elden Ring? True, but they also have the Duskbloods coming out for the Switch. So I feel like that's I feel like From Software has multiple teams at this point working on content. And Night Rain, they said, was kind of more of a smaller experiment. They weren't really planning on doing like anything major with it. Like I'm sure it's pretty popular because they just bragged that it sold like 3.5 million copies. But I don't think they're really going to be doing more content with it. I think it's kind of a mostly one and done deal. So something Santa Monica, maybe. I know there's rumors of a God of War, but from what I understand, there is no Last of Us coming. So that probably isn't going to be a thing. I don't know. There's that Intergalactic or whatever it was. That might get another teaser. There's also the House Marquee game, the studio that did Returnal. They have another title that's coming. I don't know. Probably get some more stuff about Marathon. Even though the playtest didn't really go off too well, but it's a Bungie title, so they're going to push it. Let's see. I don't know. For the predictions list, like, I think we should be trying to think of things that are possible, but maybe not necessarily likely, you know, to kind of keep things spicy. So let's see here. Trying to think, what others? Yeah, see, that's the thing about God of War is like, I don't really know where they would go now with Ragnarok. Like, Ragnarok kind of tied up Kratos' story pretty cleanly. Atreus obviously could have his own journey, but I don't know. It'd be cool to see them go to like Egypt, you know, have like the Egypt pantheon that they would be chilling with. But I don't know. I suppose when you close a story like they did, anything is possible now. I mean, I would not have thought that the God of War character going to Norse mythology would have been interesting, but they pulled it off. Next Battlefield, that's true. You know what? Yeah, we'll do that. Because I don't think there's going to be a new COD this year. So Battlefield would have a really good space for coming out, especially with GTA being delayed. So yeah, Battlefield trailer. Could do that. Let's see here. What else could we see? Something for Dead Space? Ah, man, I would love to. I would love to see more Dead Space. It's one of my favorite horror games ever. But I guess the Dead Space remake did not sell very well. Or at least it sold fine, but EA didn't make all the monies in the world. So from what I understand, Yeah, it's dead. Well, there is going to be a new Lies of P. I think Lies of P 2, actually. Yeah, they killed it. It's frustrating. Dead Space 2 remake would be like absolutely amazing, and it would also, if that was successful enough, finally fixing Dead Space 3 would be great. Like, there's so much potential for that franchise, and you look at like how well Resident Evil is selling it. It's like, how are you not tapping into this? I don't know, but yeah. Well, three's problem is the balance is really bad because they tried to turn it into a co-op action shooter with microtransactions. So all you really have to do is just redo the co-op campaign to be more balanced and not need the microtransaction store. And it would probably just be fine with that. Because the little things that they did with Dead Space to for the remake, like, you don't realize how much has actually changed in it until you see the comparisons to the original game. But all of the changes they make for the Dead Space remake are actually like pretty reasonable. Your brain just kind of goes, "Oh, that wasn't like that the whole time. I thought it was." And then you go back, you see the original game, you're like, "Oh, I guess they did change it. Oh, weird." Like, so if they use that kind of expertise for Dead Space 2 and 3, I mean, that's perfect, right? That's how a remake should be. Maybe Lost Planet. I don't know about that. I think Lost Planet is probably dead too. But I did see that the Capcom is going to be removing the Games for Windows Live restrictions on some of their older games. So like Resident Evil Outbreak, Street Fighter X Tekken, and I believe one of the Lost Planets. They should be getting their restrictions freed. So we should be able to actually see those games back on Steam soon, which would be awesome. So yeah, we'll do that though. We'll do Lies of P, something. There, we'll do DLC or a sequel. Marvel versus Capcom 4. Yo, that would be sick. You know what? Yeah, let's do it. MVC 4. Because we're gonna will that into existence. Why don't we have an MVC 4 Capcom? And no, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is not a real. I know Max tried to fix it, but like, it's not. it's bad. Maybe, I don't know. It's been a few years for Devil May Cry news. I'm not sure we're gonna see any DMC news right now. I'm pretty sure the big news out of Capcom for the rest of this year is going to be either like announcements for Monster Hunter Wilds content, Onimusha stuff, or it's going to be Resident Evil. I think Resident Evil is the big thing this year. Like you're probably going to see a lot of stuff about 9, or like maybe even 9 and a remake. But you'll definitely be seeing, I think, Resident Evil 9 this year. Just from kind of being around a lot of the Resident Evil streamers, a lot of them, they're being coy about it, but like they know something's happening. So, and like soon, apparently. So there's definitely something there. And I think that's probably going to be Capcom's big thing. So maybe some smaller stuff, but like, like Onimusha, or not Onimusha, Okami could maybe get something teased. I mean, that's pretty early in pre-production. I know that Shinji Mikami, he was just in the news saying that he was interested in doing what was it, Dino Crisis, which, yes please. How is Dino Crisis not getting a remake? That would be amazing. I would love a Dino Crisis remake, but realistically, it would be years out. To even give it any kind of the quality of a Resident Evil or something, that's a game that's many years out. So, But speaking of Capcom, like, it's dead in the water, let's be honest, but I would be shocked if we saw this game at all. But probably not. Pragmata is one of those games that just keeps popping up, like, constantly. Like, they keep teasing it, but they never actually... It's like this generation's deep down. I don't think it's ever coming out. Just saying. Like, I just don't see it. Let's see. What's something else, though? Like, I'm wondering. Billy Bust Up. Yo. I don't know what has that ever been shown at any Game Award or like Game Fest or anything though? First time I ever heard about Billy Bust Up was YouTube. I watched a Let's streamer play it. They were showing the differences between an old version of a level and a newer version. Which, by the way, Million Ways to Die is an amazing song. But yeah, I don't know. Billy Bust Up, maybe. I think we could probably get away with like let's see, what can we put on here? Let's close out. This one we want to. Let's see. Well, I feel like the indie stuff is going to be harder to predict. I think you have to be more general with it, just because there are so many types of indie games these days. What's a prediction you could probably make about indie titles? Well, I think we'll definitely get some platformer indie games. So we'll count Billy Bust Up in that. But I think the other big one is you're definitely going to get a lot of farming indie games, because that's like the big thing these days. Is like cozy farming, Stardew Valley, Harvest Moon type stuff. What's an indie? Right, indie platformers never go out of style. Well, there's Yooka Replay, the remake or remaster of the Yooka-Laylee game. But I did see the news that Playtonic just laid off a bunch of people, so that's probably not good news. Let's see. Well, besides Silksong and stuff like that, what's an indie title that probably is probably due for like a new reveal? I don't know. I know that there's some Resident Evil like horror style indie stuff that's been coming out, which I'll be checking out the horror games announcements after this, after doing all these predictions. So I'll probably see a bunch of them there. But Sea of Stars. Yeah, Sea of Stars is getting a DLC. I know that one. Let's see. I don't know. Gotta be some more predictions we could make. Here, let's look at Max's. Well, Max's list was mostly Capcom heavy, if I remember correctly. Let's see here. Yeah. Let's go. So Max's list was let's get to the end here. His list was long as fuck. All right. So all right. So Max had this. He had oh god, I can't read that. let's zoom in on that a little bit there. Can we zoom in? No. I need to get a zoom function for this. There, we'll just make it bigger. Bigger. There we go. There, that's readable. All right, so he had a new season of Street Fighter 6. Yeah, that's an easy one. A new Capcom fighting game collection. Maybe. I feel like they're kind of running out of collections at this point, unless it's like Darkstalkers or something. A new Virtua Fighter. Ooh, that's right. Virtua Fighter 6. I forgot about that. You know what? I'm actually gonna try and one up Max here. I feel like we're gonna see some Virtua Fighter 6 stuff. You know, I don't know if there's gonna be like a collection or something. That might be, I don't know. Sega's weird about collection stuff lately, but I could see that. Speaking of which, I could see us getting a Crazy Taxi reveal. So they've been showing off Shinobi lately, which by the way looks really good. But they haven't really been showing too much of Crazy Taxi. So I could see them showing some Crazy Taxi stuff. Maybe Golden Axe, but I feel like Golden Axe might be a bit too soon. Because out of all the stuff they announced from that Sega, like revamped one, you have a chicken burger, chicken boyga good. Let's see here. What else they got here? A Final Fantasy Rebirth PC. I mean, isn't it already on PC? I wonder what he was talking about with that. Final Fantasy 7 Fortnite. I feel like that's probably a safe one too. Yeah, let it cool down. Yeah, Liza P DLC reveal. Yeah, I can see that one. New actual Bloodborne thing. Yeah, I'm not seeing Bloodborne being announced in any capacity, but all right, Manibus, I appreciate you coming out and thanks for swinging by. And I hope you get some good rest. And I know you've been working a lot. I've seen your tweets, so hopefully things are going good for you. Take care, man. Let's see here. Bluepoint anything? Yeah, it is a little weird that we haven't heard anything from Bluepoint in a long time. I mean, Demon Souls remake, but yeah, I actually that's a really good thing. Like, what the heck has Bluepoint been working on? So I could see that. I'm gonna crib a little bit here from his list because I could see that. Characters in Tekken, don't care. I like Tekken, but you know, guest characters never really excite me that much. Sega Games Classics update. Okay, so he just rolled Crazy Taxi into that. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get some extra stuff from Sega Game Classics, but Crazy Taxi, I think, is the one I care about the most. Because, like, I love Shinobi, but that's coming out soon, so I don't have to worry about that. Hey, Sir Stoat. How's it going, man? Welcome to the stream. We're doing Summer Game Fest predictions. So far, I have... well, man, I moved that all the way over there, huh? There. So far, I got this stuff. So we're just kind of working on this right now. Oop. So was just looking at Maximilian stuff, seeing what's there. New Wolfenstein. Possibly, but I mean, Doom: The Dark Ages did just come out. So maybe next year for Wolfenstein. I feel like Wolfenstein is in need of a it needs like something new. I feel like Like they tried to be experimental with Youngblood and it didn't work out that well. So yeah, Wolfenstein 2 is good, but like, yeah, I feel like the franchise needs some kind of like fresh start, something interesting to it. But I mean, otherwise, Quake maybe, you know, a Quake 4 would be really good. Because rumor was that Doom in the Dark Ages was started out as a Quake game, which I'd buy that, to be honest. It definitely has like a Quake feel to it. But yeah, I think that Quake is probably where they're gonna go. I don't think Wolfenstein will be where they go. Let's see what else he's got on the list here. Final Fantasy Tactics Remake. I don't see that happening. Yeah. I would love a Final Fantasy Tactics remake, but I don't know. Square's kind of pulling back. But I do think that Square will have some game reveal. So we'll say Square new RPG reveal. So I think they'll have something like an Octopath Traveler type thing. Because they did just do a remaster of Bravely Default. That's one of the Switch 2 launch titles. So certainly not out of the realm for them to be doing some smaller titles. So we'll say Square's gonna have a new RPG reveal. I think that one's pretty generalized. Should cover most obvious announcements. Let's see. What's a more specific one? Vagrant Story? Yeah, right. Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve would just be an amazing game for them to redo, but I don't think I ever expect Square to touch Parasite Eve. Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you on that. A lot of times now these like bigger like titles, they don't interest me as much as they used to. When I see like big AAA titles being revealed, I'm like, it looks really pretty, but you know, like the indie space, the AAA, they're the AA space. They're just more interesting. They kind of always have been. But you know, don't get me wrong. I like my big blockbuster eye candy, but like, yeah, a lot of times when a new AAA game's revealed, I'm like, I've kind of seen that before in a different package. So, let's see. Arxis new game. 2K EXO release date. That's Max. So he's got a lot of fighting games. Any new fighting game, anything. Yeah. It's funny how much of Max's prediction list is essentially either Final Fantasy VII something or something in a fighting game or a new fighting game announcement. It's like literally like 70% of his list. Right? And like I find myself buying a lot of like the bundle type games because of that, you know, because they're cheap. You know, they'll go into my Steam backlog and eventually I'll get around to playing them. You know, not that I don't go out and buy expensive brand new games, but like I just don't do it as much as I, you know, like I see the big new game, I get excited for it, and I'm just like, eh. Like I didn't buy Doom the Dark Ages, I just played it on Game Pass. You used to speedrun Hollow Knight, huh? Oh, it's pretty cool. Hmm. Let's see here. Well, speaking of fighting game stuff, I don't know. I could see hmm. It's a fighting game reveal that you probably could have that's realistic. Obviously something like Street Fighter 6 or something, you know, or Tekken having new content. Probably an easy one. How about DBZ Fighters? Or with a Z. Oh. Suppose I gotta like shrink this, sir. Here, we'll do that. I'd say like DBZ Fighters, probably 2. Reveal. I mean, it's been a few years now. I think DBZ Fighters has had its time in the sun. I can see a sequel coming. Plus, this time it'd actually be built properly for a netcode and everything. So I think it'd be going, it'd get, be a little easier for people to jump into. Maybe even like a, Olingo dating game where you date the bird. No, but I suppose. Duolingo? Yeah, I don't know. Duolingo was... a translation game would be kind of fun. There's a bunch. What's the Learn Japanese or Die or something like that? Those are interesting. DBZ Fighter, maybe if not Marvel versus Capcom, I could see like another Capcom versus title or collection. I could just see that happening. Let's see here. Yeah, he's got Panzer Dragoon 2 Y on here because there's the company that's been doing the remasters or remakes or whatever of older Sega titles for House of the Dead and stuff. I could see that, maybe. I mean, that's a far shot, but we'll say Panzer Dragoon anything. Just because Panzer Dragoon is one of my favorite franchises ever, and it never gets enough love. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think on the free to play front? Like, think there's gonna be like a new Overwatch style shooter. I feel like after Concord, people are probably like, "Yeah." I don't know. Extraction shooters seem like the big thing now. Chance of Sonar? Let's look it up. I think I've seen this. Observe, listen, and decipher ancient languages in a fascinating universe inspired by the myth of Babel. This could be interesting. This definitely looks like one of those chill games. Yeah, I like that concept. I like when games take basic concepts and then try to like build a game around it. Like a game where you're technically blind, but you have to use like echolocation to see or heat vision or something like that. Like games that play around with like simple concepts. Like I don't know if you saw that Grand Theft Auto VOD that somebody had. They streamed themselves playing Grand Theft Auto 5, but all of the car traffic was cranked up to like 200% speed. And it's hilariously wild. Let me see if I can. Well, let's see here. Here, we'll pop Max into like a normal thing here. Yeah, this shit was just like absolutely silly to me. There. Here. Yeah, this.
Hello and welcome to Chaos Distance Mod, where a random chaos effect occurs every 200 meters I travel. My goal is to travel with Trevor, who only has a pistol, all the way from the airport to the very top of the map at this small little island. Unfortunately, as I'm playing as Trevor,
that a little bigger.
I restart at the airport every time I die. I will always start with a 3-star wanted level. So I'm already off to a very bad start. As you can see, the bar at the top is going up as I continue to travel, and so that's the whole gimmick here. The faster I travel, the more effects that happen. So one of the hardest things about starting from the airport is a lot of the teleporting effects put me back in the city. It's actually what I used the last time I did this to succeed. So rather than the teleports being an asset, this time round.
This isn't it. Let's see, where is it? Nope, those are boobs. Come on, YouTube, why are you so useless? Okay, this was like a massive thing. I just watched this. Okay, hold on a second here. Gotta look through my history here. There we go. I found it. Like, what the heck? How did this not show up?
Is also subject to traveling at like speed 900,000. Okay, yep. So I need to get out now. Shit.
Tom, you're on the wrong side of the road, Aussie.
Okay. Oh my god, the fucking cop boats. So now we have to make our way back to Roman. Shit. Okay, so if I make it back to the regular island, I might be able to lose the wanted level. Let's just try and cross the road, get back to Roman. It's about this way. Oh, gonna try and get in this motherfucker just to get some protection from the cars. Okay. Oh no, the cop cars are really fast too. I didn't think we were gonna get this off track this fast. This is like a nightmare. It truly is. Okay, off that one goes. Oh. Shit, what's the buttons? Ah, amazed that our first death in this game was from gunfire, not a car. Let's go to Roman. Hey, man. Oh.
This is wild, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Well, first try, not a bad try. What's up, dude? Okay, they're on fire. We're just gonna go ahead, cross the road. There's no point looking left or right. Damn it. Okay, we can get in this. Okay. Just gonna drive this incredibly cautiously. Never mind, the acceleration kicks in no matter what speed you're going. Oh no, we're gonna explode in the air. The event horizon is opening up for Nico. He's seeing the forbidden America that dwells in the air. I'm gonna bail. I'm gonna aim for the water. Oh, I'm glad we got out of there. Okay. Oh, there go the cars.
Oh my god.
Oh, they're flying east for winter. I'm gonna take the risk. Never mind. I'm getting out of the car. Just go. I have a replica of Aragorn's sword when he was being Strider, and it rules. Video games. Lesbian? You better believe it. There we go.
I have no idea what that joke is.
I deserve that. My bad. I shouldn't judge people based on... I shouldn't accurately judge people based on information available to me. All right. Chill out. We're so far away. This has completely fucked me. Thanks for doing that in front of the green screen. Don't use the... Ah! Holy God. Vehicle density is dense.
This is great, isn't it?
Okay, we cannot afford to let the camera readjust on its own time. I feel like on the highway is paradoxically going to be a good place to go because all of the cars on here are flying far above the highway. On the floor, we're at greater risk. All right, now if I stay on the highway, I think this is going to be a good route over to Romans. At least it's going to get us.
It's kind of funny that
we
like
only need to go one direction.
you end up having to treat
Okay,
this as like a survival game because of how crazy the traffic is. But yeah, like that's just amazing to me. Like to have that kind of like car speed or whatever, you know, like that kind of density. It just makes the game that much more funny. Anyway, let's see here. Let's go back to the other predictions and put some music back on. All right. So what else do we got? Out of Sight is an initiative VR game. Has heavy little nightmare vibes and blends third person in an amazing way. Yeah, I've seen that actually. I got a bunch of horror games on my list of stuff I gotta play. Well, I think outside of like obvious Nintendo and Sony reveal type things, like, you know, like yeah, they could reveal the Jesus, my brain's farting here. Like they could reveal like the Wolverine stuff or something. I don't know. That's State of Play and Nintendo Direct stuff though. I'm not sure. I do have VR actually. I bought a VR headset a couple months ago, and I have not actually set this guy up for VR streaming yet, which I'd love to. I'd love to do like VR chat and stuff. Don't have a custom model or nothing, but you know, don't necessarily need that to roam around and check stuff out. I've just never actually like figured out how to get it to stream. I know you can buy the cable, but there's a lot of people who say that the cable isn't as good as just streaming Wi-Fi. So I'm not really sure what's up with that. So, but that's something that's definitely on the docket. Yeah, it's a Quest 3. Yeah, I got a stupidly good deal on it. I bought a couple months ago for like $230. Not a 3S, an actual Quest 3. With the extended battery pack. Yo, what's up, lame? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. We're doing Summer Game Fest predictions. Yeah, I'm not going to let that one go through. So, let's see here. Not really sure there's much else I can really add to this list. Like I said, I think this is probably like, I mean, outside of, you know, Nintendo adding extra stuff, you know, from like Nintendo Direct or like, you know, Sony State of Play or something like that. With Quest and linking, the virtual desktop is better feature-wise, as you can use Vive trackers, you can use the bottom cameras in the Quest upper body tracking for shoulders. However, say latency-wise, are missing with a good 3SP 3.0 cable. Interesting. Well, I haven't thought about it from a body tracking perspective. I've thought of most of it just like streaming VR games and stuff. But yeah, it's yeah. Yeah, the link cables I've been looking at are also ones that try to keep it charged so that you don't have to worry about, you know, running out of juice while you're streaming. But I mean, that said, the extended battery I have is pretty decent. I don't know what the brand is, but yeah, those are the ones I've been looking at. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a little confusing to me how it's all set up, to be honest. Yeah, the Bobo VR is good. Mine's like a generic Chinese copy. But the battery seems to last pretty long. I get about 4 hours of battery life from the whole setup. So, which isn't terrible. But that's also when it's not under like a lot of heavy usage. So maybe 2 hours of good battery life, which for a stream is fine, to be honest. I don't know if I'd want to wear my headset for more than 2 hours. It kind of gives me, I don't want to say headaches, but I have a very sore head afterwards. So yeah, I don't have the hot swapping feature. But I suppose if I'm using the headset to do wireless streaming, that would probably chew through the battery faster, which is why I think I was leaning more towards using a cable. But I don't know. I'm going to get the cable anyway, just to try it. If I don't like it, then I can always just go back to the wireless. So, let's see. I'm trying to think of any other stuff. Honestly, I can't really think of too many predictions that would be like somewhat realistic, but maybe not. It's hard to predict Microsoft stuff at this point because like they're so Activision Blizzard focused. Like they're just a third party company now. So I mean, like, can't really think of a Microsoft specific thing like Game Pass cost increase. Like new hardware announcement. I can't see that at Summer Game Fest. So yeah, I don't have Virtual Desktop. I was playing around with Steam Link. So I'm not sure if if that one's really any decent. To be honest, it doesn't seem that great. So yeah, I'll probably just get Virtual Desktop and just call it good. So there's a bunch of programs. Choose those battery and Quest built-in link. Yeah, a lot of like the Quest built-in stuff is just kind of shit. Hate to say it. Like the accessories are overpriced, and like the Quest accessories, like from the company itself, and then like the software they have is kind of crap, but the third-party stuff is really good. So it's like weird. Every time you're like, hey, what should I do with this thing on my Quest? And people are like, don't get the thing that Meta makes. It's like, oh, okay, well, I suppose. But yeah, I wear glasses, so I actually ended up getting the prescription stuff from Zenni. That's helped a lot too. Because when I first got this thing, oh my God, my eyes hurt. Because you have to like squish it with your glasses in there. That's not very pleasant. So, yeah. I have a few things I want to buy. I want to get some rechargeable batteries for the remotes, for the controllers, stuff like that. So, but space is a premium where I'm at, so I don't really have a lot of room for VR stuff. But I'm still glad I got it. Like I said, it was dirt cheap, and honestly, it's going to be great for years, so I can't complain. Also, really handy for having the pass-through, the color pass-through. Surprisingly useful to walk around with a VR headset and still being able to see the real world. Yeah, I don't have an iPhone. It's funny how much tech relies on having an iPhone. I don't have an iPhone. I have Android. pick the VTuber profession, and half the VTuber stuff is like, yeah, you should get that because for your iPhone you could use your iPhone to stream if you have VBoozer, blah blah blah, and it's like, oh well, I have Android. Well, we don't make apps for that, really. Sucks. It's like I don't want to have to buy iPhone just for that. It's a custom fitting interface that helps block out light, increases field of view by having it closer to your eyes. Also a lot more comfy. I'm going to be honest, man. I mean, my eyelashes are already rubbing up on the thing as it is, and I don't know. I don't really have any issues with the stock, like cushion thing, whatever you want to call it, that blocks out the light. Not really a problem for me. The biggest problem I have with VR right now is that when I have VR on for more than like an hour, they're not headaches, but I get a lot of tension on my forehead. Like not directly on my forehead from the weight of the device. It's like almost like my eyes are just getting too much strain, I think. Which is probably because it's a bright light being, blasted right into your face for an hour. And I find that taking off the VR headset for 20 minutes or so really helps make me feel better. Like I love the sensation of VR. Modern VR is amazing, but like maybe it's like a issue of claustrophobia. Like I'm not necessarily super claustrophobic, but I'm not like I'm very sensitive of space, if that makes any sense. So it's something to think about when I ever have VR. So yeah, I'm not like, I don't hate the experience, but it's, I don't know. I did have a friend who uses VR who told me that like there is a bit of an adjustment period. Yeah, exactly. A new sensation takes months to get used to. Yeah, it has gotten better. The thing I noticed is that the Quest 3's lenses are much easier on my eyes than the Quest 2. I don't know, like I know the Fresnel lens was the big blame for that versus the pancake lenses, but like with the Quest 2, it was within like 20 minutes I would be getting headaches and stuff. Like I did not like it at all. I bought it. They had it back when they were clearancing out the Quest 2. And I was like, oh yeah, this would be great. It was like, 2 minute or not 2 minute. It was like almost like a 30% off sale or something. They were clearing them out. And yeah, I thought it'd be great, but like, yeah, within like 20 minutes, it sucked. And I tried. I kept it for like a day, and ultimately, I just couldn't handle it. I returned it to the store. So, but then I seen the local Best Buy. They had a demo for the 3, and I was immediately like, "Oh, this is way better. This is way better." So, yeah, it's a clearer resolution and smoothing. Yes, absolutely. The graphics are better. They're not as blurry. And yeah, the field of view does help. But I feel like the clarity is just the like the edges of the screen aren't as blurry, and that's helpful. I feel like the motion of when you're moving your head around, that motion, it's not as nauseating. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely something that takes time to get used to, though. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles with VR. People always say like, oh, it's the fact that it's got all these wires and everything. And it's like, actually, modern VR is pretty lightweight. The real big issue is just the sensation of getting used to VR, and it's different for everybody. So some people adapt to it right away, and other people, it takes time. And certain content, they'll just never get used to, I think. Repos in VR? Oh, that would be fun to try. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I suppose you can mod pretty much anything for VR, so that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh. It's not an official thing like Among Us VR. Actually, we'll add that as a prediction then. since we're talking about VR. Cool VR game reveals. Because honestly, I think at this point we need something interesting. I remember last year they had the trailer for that Aliens VR game that looked pretty cool. The reality was different. The game actually isn't that amazing, but yeah. But VR needs some cool game reveals. I also think maybe something PSVR related. Just because I feel like PSVR is not getting enough love anymore. It would be good if they made it official. I feel like, especially because PSVR 4 or PSVR for the PlayStation 4, there was some interesting game stuff like Resident Evil 7 VR, where it's like you had these game modes that were VR exclusive to the PlayStation, and like it would have been awesome to bring them over to the PC. And for a bunch of those games, modders had to kind of do it themselves. It would have been nice to see some official support. Ah, okay. Full release for VR support for now. It's modding. Yeah, that's good. There's a bunch of like Among Us, Lethal Company type clones. That it's funny how like some of them I thought they would absolutely catch on, but like for some reason they just never did. But Repo did. Honestly, I think it's because of the hilarity of the character.